It was a sunny afternoon when I first met her. I had just moved to a new town, and everything felt strange and unfamiliar. I had left behind my old school, my old friends, and the comfortable routine I had known for years. This new place seemed big and noisy. The streets were crowded, and the tall buildings made me feel tiny. But there was something exciting about it too. It was a chance to start fresh. I was standing at the bus stop, waiting for the bus to take me to my new school. My mind was filled with thoughts of how the day would go. Would I make new friends? Would the teachers be nice? Would anyone talk to me? The thought of being alone in a new place was a little scary, but I told myself I had to be brave. As I stood there, lost in my thoughts, I noticed a girl standing next to me. She looked about my age, maybe a little older. She had brown hair tied up in a ponytail, and she was wearing a bright yellow jacket that made her stand out against the gray buildings around us. She smiled at me, and I smiled back, feeling a little shy. "Are you new here?" she asked, her voice friendly and warm. I nodded. "Yeah, I just moved here. It's a bit different." "I know what you mean," she said, laughing softly. "I moved here last year, and I still feel like I don't know everything about the place." I was surprised. I had expected everyone to know exactly how things worked in this new town, but she seemed just as unsure as I was. It made me feel a little better. "I'm Emily," she said, extending her hand. "What's your name?" "Jake," I replied, shaking her hand. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too, Jake," she said, smiling again. "Where are you from?" I told her about my old town, how everything was smaller and quieter, and how I missed it a little. She listened carefully, nodding as I spoke. When I finished, she looked thoughtful for a moment. "It sounds like it was a nice place," she said. "But hey, you might like it here once you get used to it. There's a lot to explore, and the people here are pretty friendly." Her words made me feel a little better. I had been so focused on how different everything was, but maybe she was right. Maybe I could learn to like this new place. The bus arrived, and we both climbed aboard. As we found seats, Emily told me more about the town. She talked about the parks, the shops, and even some of the cool places to eat. I listened closely, taking mental notes of everything she said. It was nice to have someone to talk to, especially when I was feeling so lost. When we reached the school, we both got off the bus and walked toward the entrance together. The school was big, much bigger than my old one. There were dozens of kids milling around, talking to each other, laughing, and looking busy. It felt a little overwhelming, but Emily seemed to know where she was going. She waved at a few people as we walked through the hallway. "This way," she said, guiding me toward the classroom. "You'll get used to it." When we reached the classroom, she showed me where to sit. I could feel all the eyes on me as I walked to my seat. It wasn't a mean look, just curious. Everyone seemed to be wondering who I was and why I was there. I could feel my heart pounding a little, but Emily gave me an encouraging smile before she went to her own seat. The teacher, Mr. Johnson, walked in a few minutes later. He was tall, with glasses and a kind face. He welcomed everyone to the class and started talking about the schedule for the day. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to how strange everything felt. I was still sitting there when Emily raised her hand. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "can Jake join the group for the project?" Mr. Johnson looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "Of course, Emily. Jake, feel free to join any group you like." I was surprised. I hadn't expected to be included in a group so quickly, especially not on my first day. But Emily seemed to want me to be a part of it, so I smiled and nodded. "Thanks," I said, my voice a little shy. The day went by quickly. Emily helped me find my way around the school, introduced me to some of her friends, and made me feel a lot less nervous. By lunchtime, I was starting to feel like maybe I could fit in here after all. At lunch, Emily invited me to sit with her and her friends. I wasn't sure what to expect, but they all seemed nice. There was Sarah, who had curly hair and a bright smile. And then there was Max, a tall boy who was always cracking jokes. They all made me laugh, and I felt like I was starting to make real friends. It felt good to laugh and talk with people, even if I was still getting used to everything. As the days passed, I started to feel more comfortable at school. I began to learn the names of the teachers, where the classrooms were, and which hallway led to the cafeteria. Emily was there for me every step of the way, helping me whenever I needed it. We spent time talking about our favorite books, movies, and things we like to do. I started to realize that maybe this new place wasn't so bad after all. One afternoon, Emily invited me to join her for a walk in the park after school. I wasn't sure at first. I had never been to this park, and it seemed a little far from the school. But Emily seemed excited, so I agreed. We walked down the street, chatting about everything and nothing at all. The park was big, with tall trees, wide paths, and a small lake in the center. There were kids playing, people jogging, and families having picnics. It felt peaceful, and for the first time since I had arrived in this town, I felt like I was starting to find my place. Emily and I found a bench near the lake and sat down. We talked about school, our families, and what we wanted to do in the future. She told me about her dreams of traveling the world, and I shared my own goals, like learning to play the guitar. It felt good to talk to someone who understood. As the sun began to set, we sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky turn orange and pink. It was one of those moments that made everything feel right. For the first time since I moved here, I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. I was starting to belong. "Thanks for inviting me," I said quietly. Emily smiled. "I'm glad you came. I think you'll like it here. You just need to give it some time." I nodded. "Yeah, I think you're right." We stayed at the park for a while longer, just enjoying the peace and the moment. When it was time to go home, we walked back together, talking about the things we had planned for the weekend. It was a nice end to the day, and I felt happy knowing I had made a real friend. From that day on, things started to feel easier. The town, the school, the people, they weren't so strange anymore. I knew where to go, what to do, and who to talk to. I had found my rhythm, and Emily had been a big part of that. It's funny how life works sometimes. At first, everything seemed hard and new. But with a little time, a little help from a friend, and an open mind, things began to fall into place. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm not alone in this new place. And for now, that's enough. The weeks passed, and the more time I spent with Emily, the more I felt at home. School wasn't as intimidating as it had been on the first day. I had my routine now. I knew where my classes were, where to sit during lunch, and how to get through the school day without feeling lost. Emily and I had become good friends, and I started to enjoy hanging out with her and her group after school. One Friday afternoon, Emily invited me to join her and some friends at the movies. At first, I hesitated. I hadn't been to the cinema in a long time, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for a night out with a big group of people. But Emily was excited, and I didn't want to miss out on something fun. So, I agreed to go. That evening, we all met at the theater. There was a mix of excitement in the air as everyone chatted and joked while waiting in line for tickets. The movie we were going to see was a comedy, which made me feel more relaxed. I loved laughing, and I figured it would be a good way to bond with everyone. Once inside, we found our seats and the lights dimmed. The movie started, and for the next 2 hours, I laughed harder than I had in a long time. The jokes were silly, but they were just what I needed. I looked around at my new friends, all of us sharing the same laughs, and I felt a warmth in my chest. It was one of those moments where everything felt right, like I truly belonged. After the movie, we walked out into the cool night air. Everyone was chatting about their favorite scenes, and Emily was laughing at one of Max's jokes. I couldn't help but smile. I felt like I was a part of something now, not just someone standing on the outside looking in. These people weren't strangers anymore. They were my friends, and I was finally starting to understand what it felt like to belong. As we walked to the bus stop, Emily walked beside me. She gave me a playful nudge. "I'm glad you came tonight," she said. "I know it was a bit last minute, but I think you had a good time, right?" "I did," I said, feeling a sense of relief. "I'm glad I came too. It's fun hanging out with all of you." "I told you," Emily said with a grin. "You just had to give it a chance. The town isn't so bad once you get to know it." I nodded, feeling grateful for her friendship. It was true. Things had gotten better. I wasn't just a new kid anymore. I was Jake, a part of this group, this town, this new life. The fear and uncertainty I had felt at the beginning were slowly fading away. And as I got on the bus that night, I knew I was no longer just passing through. This was home now,